Welcome to Veterans Creed, the channel where bravery, sacrifice, and honor come alive. Here, we share the untold stories of heroes, the lessons of courage, and the spirit that defines true veterans. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we honor the legends and uncover the stories that... The bar didn't look like much from the outside, just another roadside place with weather-worn wooden panels, a flickering neon sign, and a parking lot full of pickups coated with desert dust. But inside, it carried a warmth only known to travelers, veterans, and people who needed a quiet corner more than they needed company. Amber lights glowed softly against the shelves of bottles, blues music drifted low through old speakers, and the faint smell of citrus cleaner mixed with oak-aged whiskey. At the far end of the bar, a woman sat alone. She wasn't dressed to stand out, just a fitted black leather jacket, dark jeans, and boots that had seen more miles than most of the customers in the room. But there was something in the way she carried herself. She didn't slouch, her back stayed straight, her shoulders relaxed but ready. A calm stillness surrounded her, like a place where storms didn't dare linger. She rested both hands around a simple glass of water. Not alcohol. She wasn't here to drink. She was here because this was the only place in town where no one asked questions. The bartender, a silver-haired man with tired eyes, had learned long ago to treat her with the same respect he gave to the regulars who kept their ghosts to themselves. He slid her a bowl of peanuts without a word. She nodded once in thanks. In truth, she liked moments like this. Moments where no one knew her name, her past, or the weight she carried. Moments where she could pretend she was just another traveler passing through, and not someone who had spent years living behind a call sign that echoed in the darkest corners of military operations. But peace has a strange way of attracting exactly what threatens it. The door swung open, letting in a gust of cold night air, and with it a burst of loud laughter. A group of 4 men entered. They took up space instantly, the kind of space only people who were used to leading, commanding, or fighting for their lives understood. One of them, taller, broader, with a trimmed beard and an unmistakably military posture, walked ahead. He didn't wear a uniform, but he didn't need one. His gait said enough. Shoulders squared, eyes always scanning, every movement deliberate. He wore a fitted navy blue shirt that outlined the shape of someone who trained for a living, not for looks. When he placed his hand on the bar counter, faint scars along his knuckles caught the light. A Navy SEAL, maybe recently deployed, maybe on leave. Either way, his presence rippled through the room. The woman noticed him the moment he walked in. Of course she did. Years of training didn't disappear easily. Her eyes flicked toward him, then back to her glass. She didn't want attention tonight, but attention had already found her. The SEAL's gaze drifted across the bar, half out of habit, half curious. He looked at people the way soldiers do, identifying exits, observing behavior, subconsciously sorting threats from harmless distractions. When his eyes reached her, they paused, just for a second, because something about her didn't fit the environment. She wasn't tense, but she wasn't relaxed either. She didn't posture like someone wanting to be left alone, nor did she blend in like someone trying to disappear. She simply existed with a level of stillness that felt practiced, earned, as if she had learned to quiet storms by surviving them. He nudged the friend beside him. Who's she? The friend shrugged, new, never seen her here before. The SEAL kept watching. She got that. Look. What look? Another asked. The one you only get from the other side of the world. His friends laughed, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't, because something told him the woman wasn't ordinary. Not a regular tourist, not a runaway, not someone avoiding trouble. No, she was someone who had stared trouble in the eye and learned its language. He took a sip of his beer, still watching her. The woman felt his gaze but didn't react. She kept her breathing steady, her expression unreadable. She was invisible for a living, or at least she used to be. The bartender approached her quietly. "You okay, ma'am?" She offered the faintest smile. "Just resting," he nodded. He knew better than to pry. Outside, the wind howled softly against the door. Inside, the bar settled into an oddly quiet mood, as if the air itself sensed something unexpected was about to unfold. The woman finally lifted her eyes, not to make contact, but because she sensed movement. The Navy SEAL was walking her way, and the night was no longer quiet. The moment the Navy SEAL stepped toward her, the bar's atmosphere shifted. Not dramatically, not visibly, but subtly, like a change in air pressure before a storm. His boots made a dull thud on the wooden floor, steady and confident, the kind of walk that belonged to someone who didn't back down from anything, not even his own curiosity. The woman didn't flinch. She didn't turn to him or react in any way that would suggest surprise. She simply set her glass down and waited. If he came to talk, he came to talk. If he wanted trouble, he would find out quickly that she was the worst person in the building to start it with. But he wasn't coming for trouble, not yet. He stopped 2 feet from her table, not invading her space, but close enough to make it clear this wasn't a passing glance or a casual hello. "You mind if I sit?" he asked. His voice was deep, controlled, measured, with the unmistakable timbre of someone who had given commands under fire. His tone wasn't rude, it wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't soft either. A soldier's voice. Direct, she didn't look up yet. Instead, she tapped a small circle of moisture on the side of her glass with her fingertip, as though finishing a thought. Then she lifted her eyes, and the SEAL felt something he hadn't expected: hesitation. Her eyes held a depth that didn't match the setting or her simple clothes. They were sharp, observant, and calm enough to unsettle even a trained operator. It was the look of someone who had seen both life and death up close and had learned to walk the razor's edge between them without flinching. "Seats open," she replied. He smiled, relieved. "Thanks." He pulled the chair back and sat, leaning forward on his elbows. His friends watched from across the bar with amused curiosity, nudging each other like teenagers daring one of their own to go talk to the mysterious stranger. "So," he began, "I'll be honest with you. You don't look like the usual crowd here." She raised an eyebrow. "And what does the usual crowd look like?" He chuckled, less alert, less tuned in. His eyes narrowed slightly. "And definitely less trained." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied him. His posture, his hands, his breathing pattern. He wasn't lying. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was simply stating an observation from someone who shared a similar set of instincts. "You military?" she asked. "Was," he answered. "Navy SEAL." His chest lifted slightly as he said it. Not out of pride or arrogance, but simply out of habit. A SEAL never really left the identity behind. It lived in the way he looked at her room, at people, at her. She nodded once. "Figures. You," he asked casually, then added, "You don't have to answer. Just seems like you know that walk, that breathing, that vibe." She smirked softly. "The vibe," he shrugged. "Hey, I'm trying to be polite, but yeah, there's a vibe." She took a sip of her water. "I'm just passing through." He tilted his head. "That's not a no." She didn't reply. He leaned back, studying her now with a different kind of curiosity. Not the surface-level interest of a man talking to a stranger at a bar, but the deeper curiosity of a soldier sensing something extraordinary. "You know," he said, "most people don't sit with their back to the door unless they're armed or extremely confident." "I'm neither," she replied. He laughed. "You expect me to believe that?" Her lips barely curled into the faintest smile. Not enough for most people to notice, but he caught it. Outside, a large truck rumbled past, rattling the windows slightly. Inside, the bartender poured whiskey for a group of older men near the jukebox. The air felt thick with unspoken questions. The seal finally extended a hand across the table. "I'm Mark." Her gaze dropped to his hand for a moment. She didn't shake it, not yet. Names meant something in their world. Introductions were currency, and trust was earned, not exchanged. After a pause, she simply said, "Nice to meet you, Mark." He lowered his hand, still smiling. "All right, no name, I'll work up to that." She didn't react. He took another drink, watching her carefully. "So what brings you out here alone?" "Same thing that brings everyone here," she said. "Distance. From what?" he asked. She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. A moment that felt heavier than the words she finally spoke. "From who I used to be." He felt that answer deeply, more than he expected. He leaned forward again, elbows on the table. "Now you've got me curious." She sipped her water, eyes steady. "Curiosity can be dangerous." "Oh," he teased lightly. "Dangerous how?" She slowly set her glass down. "Because sometimes," she said quietly, "you ask a question you're not prepared for the answer to." Mark's smile faded just a little. Because something about the way she said it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a truth. He cleared his throat. "All right then, let's start simple." He lifted his chin toward her, his eyes meeting hers with genuine interest. "What's your call sign?" For a heartbeat, the bar seemed to stop moving. The blues music still played. Glasses still clinked somewhere behind the counter. Mark's friends still murmured and joked from their side of the room. But between the woman and the seal sitting across from her, the air tightened, subtle, invisible, but undeniable. Call signs were not casual conversation. Call signs were identity, history, blood. You didn't just ask a stranger for one unless you were sure they belonged to the same world. Mark wasn't sure, but he had a feeling, a strong one, strong enough that he leaned forward slightly, searching her face for even a flicker of reaction. She didn't give him one. Her expression didn't shift, not even by a degree. No smile, no irritation, no curiosity, just stillness. A stillness he recognized from somewhere, somewhere inside himself. "You're serious?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," he replied, dead serious. Her eyes lowered for a moment, as if studying the grain of the wooden table between them. Not avoiding, not deflecting, just thinking. "You know," she said slowly, "most people wouldn't even know to ask that." Mark chuckled softly. "I'm not most people." "No," she agreed, "you're not." He waited, elbow resting on the table, fingers tapping the side of his glass with a rhythm born from old habits and old battlefields. He wasn't pushing her, at least not intentionally, but his presence alone carried the weight of a man who lived on adrenaline, instincts, and curiosity that had saved his life more times than it had endangered it. Her voice cut through the quiet. "A call sign is earned," she said, "sometimes in ways you'd rather forget." "I know," he answered just as quietly. Her gaze flicked up at him, searching for something. Perhaps sincerity, perhaps understanding. Whatever she found, it stopped her from standing and walking away. For the first time that night, she leaned back in her chair. There was a shift in her posture, small, almost unnoticeable, but enough for Mark to feel it. The tension in her shoulders eased, her breathing changed, her stillness remained, but now it felt coiled, like something inside her had just woken up. "Okay," she said at last, "you want my call sign." He nodded once. "You sure?" "Positive." She studied him again, longer this time. Her eyes drifted from the scar on his knuckle to the slight indentation of an old injury at his temple, to the way he kept the door in his peripheral vision at all times. "Have you ever heard a call sign," she asked softly, "that made you rethink the person sitting in front of you?" Mark smirked. "I've heard some good ones. This one isn't good," she said. "It's a warning." Something in her tone made the hair at the back of his neck rise. His heartbeat didn't quicken. Seals didn't rattle that easily, but a chill threaded through him. "A warning to who?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. Her hands folded loosely on the table, fingers relaxed, but with an unconscious precision that only came from training. She blinked once, lowly, and then her eyes locked onto his with a steadiness that felt like a command. "A warning to anyone who thinks they know who I am." He sat up straighter. The bar lights caught the edge of her jawline, highlighting the faint shadows beneath her eyes. Shadows not from fatigue, but from history. Mark softened his voice. "Look, if it's personal, you don't have to." She cut him off gently. "It is personal. That's the point." He waited again, not filling the silence, letting her own pace decide the moment. Something told him that whatever she was about to say wasn't something she shared easily. Finally, she exhaled slowly. "My call sign," she said, "wasn't chosen. It was given to me after a mission that changed everything." Mark didn't blink. She leaned forward, just a fraction, but enough for him to feel the shift in her energy. The bar around them faded into irrelevance. Even his friends had stopped laughing, not because they knew what was happening, because they sensed it, a moment forming. Her voice was calm, controlled, almost too controlled. "They called me." A pause. Mark held his breath without realizing it. "Viper One." The words slid through the air like steel through water. Silent, sharp, unmistakable. Mark's hand froze halfway to his drink. The glass slipped from his fingers, not thrown, not dropped intentionally, just released. It hit the floor with a dull crack, liquid splashing across his boots, but he didn't react to any of it. He just stared at her. Because Viper One wasn't a name you heard in bars, wasn't a name whispered lightly, wasn't a name asked about unless you wanted the ground to shift beneath you. Viper One, he whispered, stunned. His voice trembled, just once. Barely, but it was enough. Enough to tell her he knew exactly who she was, or worse, exactly what she had done.